The bustling train station was a symphony of sounds and sights, each element playing its part in the daily rhythm of departure and arrival. The sharp hiss of closing doors, the rolling clatter of suitcases on tiled floors, and the myriad conversations of passengers created a lively backdrop. People hurried through the space, eyes fixed on departure boards or smartphones, each absorbed in their own journey's purpose. Amidst this organized chaos stood Evelyn Carter, an elderly black woman whose presence contrasted sharply with the hurried pace around her. She held a worn leather bag firmly in her hands, the creases and scuffs a testament to years of travel. Her attire was elegant yet simple, a flowing dress in deep blue that spoke of understated dignity. Her silver hair was neatly coiffed, and her gentle smile softened the lines etched by time on her face. Evelyn exuded a quiet strength, standing patiently in line to board the train despite the crowded conditions. Unlike many of her fellow passengers, she did not glance anxiously at her watch or repeatedly check her ticket. Instead, her eyes observed the station's activity with a serene detachment, as if she were familiar with every nuance of this transient world. The rain outside had begun to intensify, turning the station into a blur of water droplets streaking down large glass windows. Evelyn pulled her shawl closer around her shoulders, a subtle gesture that added to her composed demeanor. She seemed almost out of place in the modern hustle, a relic of a bygone era standing firm amidst the relentless march of progress. As her turn to board the train approached, Evelyn stepped forward gracefully, extending her ticket to the inspector at the train door. Ryan Mitchell, a young man in his late 20s with a tired expression, took the ticket with minimal interest. His eyes scanned it quickly before meeting hers with a hint of indifference. "This section is fully reserved," Ryan stated, his tone neutral as he gestured to the designated seats. "You'll need to move to the standing area in the back." Evelyn's smile wavered ever so slightly, a flicker of disappointment crossing her features. However, she nodded respectfully and adjusted her shawl, complying without a word of protest. As she made her way toward the standing section, the crowd pressed around her, many brushing past without a second glance. A few offered sympathetic looks, while others dismissed her as just another elderly passenger unable to secure a seat. Evelyn steadied herself by the window, placing one hand gently on the rail. Her gaze drifted outward, watching the rain tap rhythmically against the glass. Memories began to surface, vivid and clear, like scenes from an old film reel playing in her mind. She recalled the early days of her youth, years filled with hope and determination, when dreams were as expansive as the horizon itself. Her leather bag, now resting on her arm, held more than just the necessities of travel. Inside were tokens from her past, a faded photograph, official documents, and a small folded piece of paper yellowed with age. These items were silent witnesses to her journey, each holding a story of its own. As the train began to move, the soft hum of the engine blended with the steady rhythm of raindrops. Evelyn found a comfortable stance, allowing her thoughts to wander back to the days of struggle and perseverance. She had faced countless obstacles, each one testing her resolve, yet she had pushed forward with an unbreakable spirit. Her experiences had woven a rich tapestry of resilience, each thread a testament to her unwavering determination. Nearby, two train staff members exchanged glances, their whispers barely audible over the ambient noise. One of them, a young woman with a slightly amused expression, glanced in Evelyn's direction and let out a small laugh before sharing a comment with her colleague. They found it amusing to watch her stand alone with her old leather bag, oblivious to the attention she was garnering. Evelyn noticed their glances but chose to maintain her calm. Her expression remained unchanged, a reflection of the many challenges she had faced and overcome. She possessed a quiet strength that hinted at a deeper understanding of her own worth, far beyond the surface judgments of those around her. Suddenly, a group of passengers boarded the train, searching for empty seats. Among them was a young mother, Laura, struggling to keep her restless child from tugging at her arm. Evelyn instinctively reached out, steadying Laura's arm with a gentle touch. "Let me help you," she offered softly, her voice imbued with warmth and reassurance. Laura looked up, gratitude evident in her eyes. "Thank you, ma'am," she replied, relief washing over her as the child quieted under Evelyn's calming presence. A simple yet meaningful connection formed between them, the shared moment briefly bridging the gap between strangers. Other passengers observed the interaction, some nodding approvingly, while others quickly returned to their own conversations. The connection fleeting yet impactful. Evelyn's gaze softened further as her thoughts drifted to her own family, the countless sacrifices she had made over the years. She was no stranger to hardship, and empathized deeply with Laura's struggles. It was a reminder of the many roles she had played in life: a mother, A caregiver. And something even greater. Yet, in this crowded train car, she was simply herself, unassuming and kind, offering help without seeking recognition. A middle-aged man in a neatly pressed suit, Daniel Hughes, caught Evelyn's eye. There was a glimmer of familiarity in his gaze. A silent acknowledgement that Evelyn understood something about him that others did not. He leaned forward slightly, nodding in a way that suggested he recognized her from somewhere deep within himself. Evelyn returned his nod with a gentle smile. A silent exchange that passed unnoticed by most. Daniel hesitated, as if contemplating whether to say something, but ultimately turned away, leaving Evelyn standing with an unspoken connection lingering in the air. Meanwhile, Ryan Mitchell returned to his duties, his earlier indifference towards Evelyn giving way to a lingering curiosity. He glanced back at her standing area, his lips twitching in a faint smirk. It amused him that she had accepted her standing position without complaint, reinforcing his assumption that she did not belong among the other passengers. As Ryan moved on, murmurs began to ripple through the nearby passengers. A woman seated nearby whispered to her friend, "It's strange, isn't it? She doesn't look like the type to be standing. I wonder if she's waiting for someone." Her friend shrugged. Her curiosity piqued but quickly dismissed. "Maybe she's just used to it," she replied, brushing off the thought even as her eyes lingered, trying to decipher the quiet dignity in Evelyn's stance. A young man with his laptop overheard the exchange, his curiosity sparked by the subtle tension. He glanced up, studying Evelyn for a moment before returning to his screen, sensing that there was more to her story than met the eye. Yet, like the others, he did not ask, choosing instead to watch as his own theories began to form. Evelyn remained calm, observing the small flickers of interest around her without saying a word. Her eyes sparkled slightly, as though she found amusement in the assumptions people made about her. Her silence was not born of weakness or deference but was a deliberate choice, a quiet strength that allowed her to see the world with a clarity born of experience. As the train rattled along, the scenery outside blurred into a mix of trees, fields, and distant towns. Evelyn's hand rested lightly on the rail, the other clutching her leather bag. Her fingers traced the worn edges of the bag, feeling the familiar texture and warmth that had been her companion through countless journeys. A realization dawned on Ryan as he watched Evelyn stand unwavering amidst the shifting energy of the car. There was something about her presence that seemed out of place, a silent story waiting to be told. He approached her again, this time with a more respectful demeanor, hoping to uncover the mystery that surrounded her. "Excuse me, ma'am," Ryan began, his voice softer than before. "I don't mean to intrude, but I just wanted to apologize for earlier. I shouldn't have dismissed you so quickly." Evelyn looked up, her eyes meeting Ryan's with a calm, penetrating gaze that made him falter momentarily. "Thank you for your concern," she replied gently, her voice carrying a subtle authority. "I've spent my whole life standing, Ryan, and I've learned that sometimes when you stand long enough, you start to see things others might overlook." Ryan nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling into his mind. He felt a strange gratitude for her grace and the lesson she had imparted without uttering a single complaint. As the train continued on its journey, Evelyn remained by the window, her presence a quiet anchor amidst the ebb and flow of passengers. The murmur of conversations and the clatter of the train wheels formed a steady rhythm. But within the car, a sense of reverence lingered, a silent acknowledgement of the legacy Evelyn carried within her. In that moment, Evelyn Carter was no longer just an elderly woman denied a seat on a train. She was a beacon of resilience and dignity, her silent strength touching the lives of those around her in ways they had yet to fully comprehend. As the train sped forward, the seeds of change had been planted, waiting to blossom in the hearts and minds of the passengers who had witnessed the silent departure of a remarkable woman. The interior of the train was a sanctuary of warmth against the persistent drizzle outside. Soft lighting bathed the car, creating pockets of coziness amid the lingering chill of the rainy evening. The rhythmic clatter of the tracks provided a steady backdrop, a soothing counterpoint to the diverse symphony of passenger interactions. Evelyn Carter stood by the window, her gaze fixed on the passing landscape. Her presence was a study in calm amidst the subtle chaos of the moving train. The worn leather bag on her arm seemed almost an extension of herself, a constant companion that held pieces of her past tightly woven into its seams. She remained poised, her silver hair catching the soft light, reflecting her dignified yet unassuming nature. Across the aisle, Laura Thompson struggled to soothe her restless child. The young mother juggled a diaper bag and a weary toddler, her face etched with the exhaustion of a long day. Evelyn noticed the tension in Laura's posture and instinctively reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "Let me help you." Evelyn offered gently, her voice a balm of calm. Laura looked up, gratitude flooding her eyes. "Thank you, ma'am," she replied, relief evident in her voice as the child began to settle under Evelyn's soothing presence. The small interaction did not go unnoticed. Passengers nearby exchanged appreciative glances, their initial indifference softening into subtle admiration. Among them was Daniel Hughes, a middle-aged businessman with a neatly pressed suit and an air of practiced composure. His eyes lingered on Evelyn, a flicker of recognition hinting at a deeper understanding that even he couldn't quite place. Meanwhile, Ryan Mitchell and his colleague, Jessica Brooks, lingered near the standing area, their conversation low but animated. Jessica, a young woman with a sharp wit and a penchant for sarcasm, glanced toward Evelyn with a raised eyebrow. "Looks like we've got ourselves a real mystery passenger," Jessica remarked, a hint of amusement in her tone. Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah. She's been standing here for ages without moving. Must be used to this kind of treatment." Their dismissive attitude toward Evelyn contrasted sharply with the growing sense of curiosity among the other passengers. Whispers began to circulate, fueled by Evelyn's quiet strength and the enigmatic aura that surrounded her. Some speculated about her reasons for traveling alone, while others wondered if she was waiting for someone. In a secluded corner of the car, Sarah Lawson, the young journalist, observed Evelyn with keen interest. Her notebook was open on her lap, her pen poised to capture any notable detail. Sarah's intuition told her that Evelyn's story was one worth telling, and she was determined to uncover the layers beneath her composed exterior. As the train continued its journey, the atmosphere inside the car shifted subtly. The initial tensions of denied seating gave way to a collective sense of intrigue. Passengers began to engage more openly, their conversations now tinged with curiosity about Evelyn's true identity and purpose. Evelyn, ever observant, noticed the shifting dynamics. She offered a warm smile to Daniel Hughes, acknowledging his silent nod of recognition. Daniel's expression softened, his earlier skepticism replaced by a burgeoning respect. He found himself drawn to Evelyn's unwavering composure, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy that surrounded him. Laura, having regained her composure, glanced around the car with a newfound appreciation for Evelyn's presence. "It's nice to see someone so patient and kind," she remarked to a nearby passenger, her voice filled with admiration. The passenger nodded, reflecting the sentiment. Not many people would just stand here like that without making a fuss. Evelyn returned Laura's smile, her eyes twinkling with quiet wisdom. "Patience is a virtue, my dear. It teaches us to see beyond the immediate and appreciate the journey itself." Her words hung in the air, resonating with those who had been part of the earlier exchange. The passengers felt a subtle shift within themselves, a momentary pause to reflect on the unspoken lessons Evelyn imparted through her mere presence. Sarah Lawson scribbled furiously in her notebook, her mind racing with possibilities. She approached Evelyn once more, her voice respectful and inquisitive. "Excuse me, ma'am," she began. "I couldn't help but notice how gracefully you handled everything today. It's rare to see someone so composed. May I ask if you travel often?" Evelyn turned to Sarah, her gaze warm and inviting. "I used to travel quite a bit," she replied, her voice carrying the weight of countless memories. "These days, not so much. But when I do, I like to observe how things have changed and how much has stayed the same." Sarah nodded, sensing that there was more to Evelyn's story than she was letting on. "Do you have a favorite memory from your travels?" she pressed gently, hoping to peel back another layer of the mystery. Evelyn's smile deepened, a hint of nostalgia flickering in her eyes. "There are too many to count," she began thoughtfully. "Perhaps the ones that stand out are those where I felt the weight of every step I took. The days when each mile meant more than just distance." Her words carried a profound sense of purpose, leaving the passengers intrigued and contemplative. Daniel Hughes found himself reflecting on his own relentless pursuit of success, while Laura felt inspired by Evelyn's quiet resilience. Even Ryan Mitchell, who had initially dismissed her, couldn't help but feel a sense of unease at his earlier judgment. As the train sped forward, the landscape outside became a blur of greenery and fleeting towns. Inside, the passengers remained engaged in the subtle dance of observation and reflection, each drawn deeper into the quiet mystery that was Evelyn Carter. The whispers and glances continued to weave a tapestry of curiosity, binding the passengers together in a shared moment of discovery. Evelyn stood by the window, her presence a beacon of strength and dignity. She watched as the scenery transformed, much like the passengers around her. Each glance and every word exchanged was a step closer to unveiling the true essence of her legacy. In that moving train car, amidst the whispers and glances, Evelyn's story began to unfold, captivating the hearts and minds of those who had the privilege of witnessing her silent departure. As the train began to gather speed, the rhythmic clatter of wheels on steel merged with the soft sound of rain tapping against the windows. The atmosphere inside the car shifted from one of hurried discomfort to a quieter curiosity. A subtle transformation that unfolded like the pages of a well-worn book. Evelyn Carter stood by the window, her eyes reflecting the blurred landscapes rushing past. Outside, the trees and fields melded into a watercolor of greens and browns. But inside, a different kind of scenery was developing, a mosaic of glances and whispered conversations swirling around her. Nearby, a young mother, Laura Thompson, wrestled with her fussy toddler. The child's loud protests punctuated the air, contrasting sharply with the otherwise muted tones of the train. Laura's face was a portrait of exhaustion. Her attempts to soothe the child met with frustration. Just then, Evelyn turned her head, offering a warm smile that seemed to cut through the tension. "Would you like a hand?" Evelyn asked softly, her voice a gentle caress amidst the din. Laura paused, her eyes widening in surprise at the offer. "Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you," she replied, her tone filled with relief. With Evelyn's help, the child settled against Laura, the rhythmic movement of the train lulling him into a semblance of calm. Around them, passengers exchanged curious glances, some nodding appreciatively at the kindness displayed. Daniel Hughes, a middle-aged businessman in a tailored suit, leaned forward slightly, intrigued by the quiet strength emanating from Evelyn. He had initially dismissed her as just another elderly traveler, but now he felt drawn to her presence, a stillness that seemed to anchor the tumult of the train. As the train rolled on, the murmurs among the passengers grew. A few seated nearby began speculating about Evelyn's background. "Do you think she's someone important?" one woman whispered to her companion, her voice barely above the noise of the engine. "I don't know," the other replied, glancing at Evelyn with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "She looks like she has a story to tell." Evelyn, standing by the window, remained blissfully unaware of the mounting interest surrounding her. Her thoughts drifted back to the myriad journeys she had taken over the years, each one etched into her memory like the grooves on a well-traveled road. The leather bag she clutched held not only personal effects but the essence of those experiences, the sacrifices, the triumphs, the relentless pursuit of a dream. Ryan Mitchell, the train inspector, strolled through the car, his earlier dismissive attitude towards Evelyn now replaced by a flicker of curiosity. He noticed how passengers leaned toward her, engaged in whispered conversations that momentarily broke the barriers of anonymity. "What's the story there?" he wondered, a sense of unease creeping into his thoughts. Perhaps he had misjudged her, overlooking a depth he couldn't quite grasp. Suddenly, a voice broke through his contemplation. "Excuse me, ma'am," a younger passenger piped up, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. "Are you waiting for someone? Or perhaps you have a connection to the railway?" Evelyn turned, her gentle eyes meeting the passengers with warmth. "I suppose you could say I'm familiar with these tracks," she replied, her tone calm and measured. "I've spent many years on these rails, long enough to know every twist and turn." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The passengers around her exchanged puzzled glances, trying to decipher the layers of meaning behind her statement. Evelyn's calm demeanor hinted at a history that felt almost tangible, a legacy intertwined with the very tracks beneath them. "What do you mean?" Laura asked, now fully engaged and intrigued. "Did you work on the railway?" Evelyn smiled softly, the kind of smile that held stories untold. "Let's just say that I've been part of its journey, just as it has been a part of mine," she answered, her voice imbued with a sense of pride. At that moment, Ryan returned, a brief glance cast in Evelyn's direction. He caught the tail end of the exchange and felt a twinge of discomfort. How could he have been so quick to dismiss someone who clearly possessed such depth? As he moved on, a feeling of unease settled in his stomach. He had seen many faces in his job, each with their own stories. Yet somehow, Evelyn's quiet dignity unsettled him. It was as if she bore the weight of history, both personal and collective, that transcended the confines of the train car. Meanwhile, Sarah Lawson, the young journalist, sat quietly, her heart racing as she scribbled notes in her notebook. She had been captivated by Evelyn from the moment she boarded the train. Her instincts told her that Evelyn's story was not just a simple narrative, it was one woven with the threads of resilience, dignity, and perhaps hidden struggle. As the train moved through the countryside, a bond began to form among the passengers, linked by the intrigue surrounding Evelyn. Daniel, who had once sat absorbed in his work, found himself leaning back in his seat, listening intently to the unfolding dialogue. "Evelyn," he called out, testing the waters of familiarity. "What was it like back then? Working on the railway? I can only imagine how challenging it must have been." Evelyn turned to Daniel, her gaze steady and thoughtful. "It wasn't always easy," she said, her voice steady. "But the challenges taught me the value of perseverance. I learned that every journey has its purpose, even if it's not immediately clear." The tension in the air thickened as passengers leaned in, their attentiveness sharpening. They sensed the gravity of her words, each syllable infused with the essence of lived experience. Evelyn's quiet confidence wrapped around them like a comforting embrace, inviting them to see the world through her eyes. The train continued to rattle forward. But for the passengers in that car, time seemed to slow. In that moment, they were no longer strangers united by chance but a collective, drawn together by the magnetic pull of a remarkable woman's story. The whispers and glances evolved into an unspoken agreement, a desire to understand and connect with the wisdom she had to offer. As Evelyn resumed her position by the window, her heart warmed by the growing camaraderie. She felt a sense of belonging wash over her. Here, amid the noise and movement, she was part of something greater, a tapestry of lives intertwined by shared journeys, each seeking connection, understanding, and perhaps a touch of inspiration. Outside, the rain began to ease, revealing glimpses of a vibrant sunset peeking through the clouds. Inside, the air was charged with anticipation, and Evelyn Carter stood at the center of it all, a beacon of resilience in a world often too hurried to notice the stories woven in the quiet spaces of life. As the train chugged steadily along the tracks, the soft hum of the engine blended seamlessly with the rhythmic tapping of raindrops against the windows. The air in the car was charged with a sense of anticipation, as if the passengers were collectively holding their breath, waiting for a story to unfold. Evelyn Carter remained a focal point of intrigue, her calm demeanor drawing the attention of both passengers and crew alike. With each passing mile, whispers of her identity rippled through the car, curiosity simmering just beneath the surface. Among those caught up in the mystery was Mr. Thomas Green, the conductor, a seasoned veteran of the railway. He moved with purpose and authority, his sharp eyes missing nothing. He had watched the unfolding dynamic with a mix of skepticism and intrigue, his attention drawn particularly to the elderly woman standing by the window. Something about her presence seemed to transcend the ordinary. It was as if she carried a history that echoed with significance. As he made his rounds, checking tickets and ensuring passenger comfort, Thomas felt an inexplicable pull to approach Evelyn. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. And it was a feeling he didn't often experience in his line of work. "Excuse me, ma'am," he began, approaching her with a respectful demeanor. "I couldn't help but notice you've been standing for quite some time. Are you waiting for someone? Or perhaps you'd prefer a seat?" Evelyn turned to him, her warm eyes meeting his with a blend of curiosity and kindness. "Thank you, but I'm quite comfortable here. I've always found that standing allows me to see more of the world," she replied, her voice smooth and soothing, laced with an unspoken wisdom. Thomas nodded, intrigued by her response. "That's a unique perspective," he mused, a faint smile crossing his lips. "Most people prefer the comfort of a seat." Evelyn chuckled softly, a sound that felt like a gentle breeze in the enclosed space. "Comfort is a luxury I've learned to navigate without. Sometimes, it's in the moments of discomfort that we truly begin to appreciate our surroundings." Her words resonated deeply with Thomas, who had spent years managing the ebb and flow of passengers, many of whom took their journeys for granted. He found himself wanting to know more about this remarkable woman. "May I ask if you have a connection to the railway?" he ventured, his curiosity getting the better of him. Evelyn's expression shifted slightly, a glimmer of something unspoken flashing in her eyes. "You might say that the railway has been a part of my life for a long time," she replied, her tone reflective. "I have spent many years working on these very tracks." The atmosphere in the car shifted once more, passengers leaning in closer, captivated by the unexpected revelation. "What kind of work did you do?" Laura asked, her eyes wide with curiosity, eager to unravel the layers of Evelyn's history. With a soft sigh, Evelyn began to share her story, her voice weaving a narrative that transported her listeners to another time. "I started as a porter, helping passengers navigate their journeys, carrying luggage and offering assistance," she explained. "In those days, it was not common for women, especially women of color, to hold such roles in this industry." As she spoke, Evelyn painted vivid pictures with her words. She described the bustling stations of her youth, the camaraderie among the workers, and the relentless drive that pushed her to learn every aspect of the railway. The passengers were enraptured, their earlier skepticism replaced by admiration for her tenacity and resilience. Daniel leaned forward. His interest piqued. "So you were part of the team that built this railway into what it is today?" he asked. A note of respect evident in his voice. Evelyn nodded, a smile touching her lips. "Yes. I watched it grow from humble beginnings into the sprawling network it is now. Every stretch of track tells a story. And every station holds memories of the people who traveled through them." As the train continued to glide along, the rain finally began to relent, allowing shafts of golden light to break through the clouds. The scenery outside transformed, casting a warm glow over the car, as if nature itself recognized the importance of Evelyn's tale. Just then, Ryan returned, an air of uncertainty surrounding him. He had observed the growing engagement among the passengers and felt a twinge of guilt for his earlier dismissal of Evelyn. As he approached, he caught snippets of her story, the words resilience and legacy floating through the air. "What's happening here?" he asked, his tone light but filled with genuine interest. The collective focus on Evelyn was undeniable, and he wanted to be a part of it. "Just sharing a bit of history," Thomas replied, nodding toward Evelyn. "This lady here has been integral to the railway's journey." Ryan shifted his gaze to Evelyn, his expression shifting from skepticism to curiosity. "Is that so? I didn't realize." Evelyn met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "It's easy to overlook the stories that shape our world, isn't it?" she said, her tone gentle yet pointed. "Sometimes, we need to look closer to see the truth behind the faces we encounter." Ryan felt the weight of her words settle over him, a reminder of the countless passengers he had brushed aside in his role as inspector. He hesitated, then cleared his throat. "I apologize for not recognizing your importance earlier. It seems I've been too quick to judge." Evelyn smiled kindly, the warmth in her gaze easing the tension in the air. "It's never too late to learn, young man. Every journey teaches us something, even if we don't realize it at first." A ripple of understanding passed through the passengers, their expressions softening as they absorbed the wisdom emanating from Evelyn. The earlier whispers faded into an appreciative silence, each person reflecting on their own journeys and the stories that had shaped them. As Evelyn continued to speak, the train car transformed into a sanctuary of shared experiences. Each passenger, from the young mother with her child to the businessman caught in the relentless pursuit of success, found a piece of themselves in her narrative. They were all travelers on their own paths, seeking connection, understanding, and perhaps a touch of inspiration. And in that moment, Evelyn Carter was no longer just an elderly woman standing by the window. She was a storyteller, a bridge connecting the past to the present, her legacy woven into the very fabric of the railway and the lives of those around her. As the train moved forward, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the passengers who sat enraptured, listening to the unfolding tale of resilience and legacy, knowing that they were part of something extraordinary. The train glided smoothly along the tracks, the gentle rocking motion becoming a soothing lullaby for the passengers. Outside, the world blurred into a tapestry of golden fields and distant hills. But inside, the atmosphere buzzed with an electric curiosity, heightened by Evelyn Carter's captivating narrative. Evelyn continued her story, each word infused with a depth that resonated in the hearts of her listeners. She spoke of her early days as a porter, the grit and determination that fueled her ascent in a world that had not always been welcoming. "I remember my first day on the job," she began, a soft smile dancing on her lips. "I was nervous, but I knew that every person I helped was a step toward changing perceptions, one small act of kindness at a time." The passengers leaned in closer, spellbound by her recollections. Laura, the young mother, listened intently, imagining the world Evelyn described, a time when every journey was laden with the weight of expectation and the promise of opportunity. "What was it like to face the challenges of that time?" Laura asked, her voice a mix of admiration and curiosity. Evelyn paused, her gaze distant as if she were peering into the corridors of her past. "It was daunting. There were days when the weight of the world felt unbearable. I faced prejudice, yes, but also moments of profound connection. Every time I assisted a passenger, I felt a small victory. I learned to stand tall, to hold my head high in the face of adversity." Daniel Hughes, captivated by Evelyn's resolve, couldn't help but interject. "You transformed what could have been a mundane job into something meaningful." "That's remarkable," he remarked, his respect for her evident. Evelyn smiled, appreciating the acknowledgement. "We all have the power to redefine our paths, don't we? Every moment can become a stepping stone, a way to honor those who came before us." Her words struck a chord, and the passengers exchanged glances, recognizing the truth woven into her narrative. As the conversation flowed, Ryan, still grappling with his earlier assumptions, stepped forward hesitantly. Evelyn, if you don't mind me asking, how did you manage to push through the challenges you faced? Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the bustling noise of the train faded into the background. It wasn't just about me, she replied, her voice steady. It was about my family, my community, and everyone who believed in me. I carried their hopes with me every day. Their dreams fueled my determination. The weight of her words hung in the air, prompting Ryan to reflect on the people he had encountered in his own life, the ones whose stories had gone unheard. The tension he had felt earlier began to dissipate, replaced by a growing respect for the woman standing before him. Just then, Sarah Lawson seized the moment, her journalist instincts kicking in. Evelyn, if I may, your story is so inspiring. Would you allow me to write about it? I believe it deserves to be shared with a broader audience. Evelyn regarded Sarah thoughtfully, weighing the request. Stories are powerful, she said, her tone contemplative. They can inspire change, bridge divides, and foster understanding. But remember, a story is more than just words on a page. It's the essence of lived experiences, the struggles, and the triumphs that define us. Sarah nodded, feeling the gravity of Evelyn's words. I understand. I want to do it justice, she replied earnestly, her pen poised over her notebook, ready to capture every nuance of this extraordinary encounter. As Evelyn continued to speak, weaving in tales of her triumphs and tribulations, the passengers felt a profound connection forming. They were no longer mere travelers sharing a train, they were witnesses to a legacy being unveiled, one that was rich with history and resilience. Evelyn recounted the pivotal moments in her career, each anecdote a thread in the tapestry of her life. There was a time when I was promoted to logistics management, she said, her eyes sparkling with the memory. It was a significant step forward, but it also meant facing even more scrutiny. I had to prove that I belonged there, not just for myself, but for everyone who had come before me. Daniel leaned closer, engrossed. How did you handle that pressure? He asked, genuinely intrigued. Evelyn chuckled softly, the sound warm and inviting. I reminded myself that pressure is just a part of the journey. It's what shapes us. Every challenge I faced taught me resilience, and every doubt cast my way became fuel for my fire. A wave of admiration swept through the car, the passengers feeling as if they were receiving a masterclass in perseverance and strength. Ryan, still processing her words, felt a shift within himself. He began to see the people he interacted with daily in a new light, each person a potential story waiting to be uncovered. As the train approached a small town, Evelyn paused, her gaze drifting back to the window. The world outside was a vibrant blur of life, and for a moment, she was lost in thought. I've always believed in the importance of connection, she murmured, almost to herself. It's what we do with our lives that truly matters. With those words, the train conductor, Mr. Green, stepped back into the car, his demeanor a blend of curiosity and respect. Ma'am, I wanted to thank you, he said, addressing Evelyn. What you've shared today is nothing short of inspiring. It's not often we hear stories like yours on these journeys. Evelyn turned to him, her expression warm. Thank you, Thomas. It's not just my story, it's a reflection of all the stories that remain unheard. We all have a legacy to uphold. Her words resonated deeply with the passengers, creating a palpable sense of unity in the car. They were bound by shared experiences and newfound understanding, the invisible threads of connection weaving them together in a tapestry of empathy and respect. As the train approached the next station, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. The journey had transformed into something far more significant than mere travel. It had become a collective exploration of identity, resilience, and the legacies each person carried within them. Evelyn Carter stood at the center of it all, her quiet strength illuminating the path for others. And in that moment, the train became a vessel of hope, a reminder that even in the midst of life's journeys, there is always room for connection, understanding, and the unveiling of our true selves. As the train rolled into the small town station, the air was electric with anticipation. The gentle sway of the carriage settled into a stillness as passengers shifted their attention to the world outside, where the raindrops had finally given way to a fleeting glimpse of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Evelyn Carter remained a steadfast presence, her eyes glimmering with memories, each one an echo of the path she had walked. The passengers were now deeply engaged, hanging on to her every word as she shared the stories that had shaped her life and the railway she had dedicated herself to. After I became a logistics manager, Evelyn continued, her voice steady and filled with purpose, I was entrusted with overseeing some of the most critical operations of the railway. It was a role that came with tremendous responsibility. I wasn't just managing schedules, I was ensuring that every train that departed carried with it the hopes and dreams of countless travelers. Laura, still cradling her now sleeping child, leaned forward, captivated. What challenges did you face during that time? She asked. Her curiosity piqued. Evelyn's gaze drifted momentarily to the window as she recalled those early days filled with trials. There were many, she admitted, her tone reflective. But one moment stands out vividly. It was during a major expansion project. And I was the only woman in a room full of men who were used to a certain way of working. There were moments when I felt invisible. But I knew I had to make my voice heard. Daniel nodded, his respect for her deepening. How did you manage to assert yourself? He asked. Evelyn's lips curled into a knowing smile. I learned to speak the language of the railway. I studied everything, the schedules, the engineering, the economics. When I presented my ideas, I didn't just bring my perspective as a woman, I brought data and proposals that demanded respect. It wasn't easy, but I made it clear that I was there to contribute. The passengers sat enraptured, their imaginations ignited by Evelyn's journey from obscurity to authority. Thomas Green, the conductor, stood nearby, absorbing every word. He had seen many passengers come and go. But this was different. This was a story of resilience woven into the very fabric of the railway he worked for. Were there times you considered giving up? Sarah Lawson, the journalist, asked, her pen poised and ready to capture every nuance. Evelyn paused, the weight of the question hanging in the air. Of course, she replied, her voice steady yet soft. There were days filled with doubt. Days when I questioned whether my efforts were worth it, especially when faced with pushback. But each time I wanted to walk away. I remembered why I started. I was not just fighting for my place, I was paving the way for others who would come after me. The train picked up speed again, the rhythmic clattering of the wheels creating a comforting backdrop to Evelyn's narrative. Her words painted vivid pictures in the minds of her listeners, and they could almost feel the energy of the bustling railway stations she described. The chatter of travelers, the hiss of steam, and the palpable excitement of new beginnings. Every time I saw a train leave the station, Evelyn continued, her eyes brightening with passion, I saw more than just a mode of transportation. I saw dreams taking flight. I saw families reuniting, adventurers seeking new horizons, and workers heading home after a long day. It fueled my purpose. The passengers exchanged glances, their hearts swelling with admiration. Ryan, who had been quietly reflecting on his earlier judgments, felt a wave of guilt wash over him. He had dismissed Evelyn at first, assuming her quietness equated to insignificance. Now, he saw her for the force she truly was, an architect of her destiny and a catalyst for change. What was your greatest achievement? Laura asked, her voice filled with awe. Evelyn's smile widened. The day we opened a new line connecting underserved communities was a moment I'll never forget. We had worked tirelessly to ensure that the railway was accessible to everyone. And when the first train pulled into the new station, the joy on the faces of those waiting was indescribable. That was when I realized the true power of our work. Daniel leaned back, processing the depth of her words. It's amazing to think how something as simple as a train line can change lives, he said softly. His perspective shifted. Evelyn nodded, her heart swelling with pride. Transportation is about connection, my dear. It's about bringing people together, allowing them to share their stories and experiences. I've always believed that the railway is more than just tracks and steel, it's a lifeline that weaves communities into a tapestry of shared experiences. As the train continued its journey, the scenery outside shifted to reveal a vibrant landscape, dotted with farms and fields bathed in golden light. The passengers were no longer just observers of the passing world, they were participants in a shared story, woven together by the threads of Evelyn's legacy. Just then, the train slowed as it approached another station. The conductor, Thomas, took this opportunity to interject. Ma'am, it seems you've captivated everyone here. Perhaps you could share your story with the wider community? It might inspire others just as it has inspired us. Evelyn's eyes twinkled with the suggestion. Stories have power, Thomas, but they need to be told with honesty and heart. If sharing my journey can spark a change, then I'd be honored to do so. The passengers erupted in supportive murmurs, their enthusiasm echoing through the car. Each of them felt a sense of ownership over this narrative, eager to witness how Evelyn's journey could ripple out into the world beyond the train. As the train rolled into the station, Evelyn felt a swell of emotion. It was as if her past and present converged in this moment. each step she had taken leading her to this very place. With every story she shared, she not only unveiled her own legacy but also inspired those around her to reflect on their own journeys. In that fleeting moment, as the train came to a complete stop, Evelyn realized that she was no longer just a passenger. She was a guide, a storyteller, and a living testament to the resilience and strength that lay within each individual. The doors of the train opened, allowing a gust of fresh air to sweep into the car, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings. And as the passengers disembarked, they did so not just as travelers but as bearers of Evelyn Carter's legacy, a legacy of steel and heart that would continue to inspire long after the train had departed. The sun hung low in the sky as the train came to a gentle stop at the station, casting long shadows across the platform. A refreshing breeze swept through the air, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and blooming wildflowers. As the passengers disembarked, they were filled with a sense of connection and purpose, each one touched by the shared experience of Evelyn Carter's story. Evelyn stepped off the train, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and gratitude. The platform bustled with activity, families reuniting, friends laughing, and travelers rushing to their destinations. But for Evelyn, this moment felt different. It was as if the weight of her past and the promise of her future collided, creating a space ripe for possibility. As she descended the train steps, Laura caught up to her, holding her sleeping child close. "Evelyn," she called, her voice bright with excitement. "I can't stop thinking about everything you shared. It's inspired me to do more in my community." Evelyn turned, her eyes sparkling. "That's wonderful to hear, dear. Remember, change often starts small. Every action, no matter how minor, can ripple out and create a wave of impact." Laura nodded vigorously, her enthusiasm palpable. "I want to help connect people in my neighborhood, just like you did with the railway. I want to make a difference." "Then do it," Evelyn encouraged, placing a reassuring hand on Laura's shoulder. "Believe in the power of your voice. You have the ability to forge connections, to uplift others. That's the true essence of legacy." As they spoke, Daniel approached, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Evelyn," he began, "would you consider speaking at a community event? I think your story could inspire many people beyond this train ride." Evelyn smiled, her heart swelling at the suggestion. "I would be honored, Daniel. But remember, my story is just one of many. There are countless others out there waiting to be told." He nodded, understanding the truth in her words. "Perhaps we can organize a storytelling event where everyone can share their experiences. It could be a beautiful way to celebrate our community's diverse narratives." The idea ignited a spark among the passengers. Excitement filled the air as people began to chatter, sharing their own stories and suggesting ways to make the event a reality. Evelyn could feel the energy shift, a sense of unity blossoming in the hearts of those around her. As the group gathered, Ryan stepped forward, his earlier reservations fading away. "I'd like to help with the logistics," he offered, a newfound sincerity in his voice. "If we work together, we can create something special." Evelyn's heart warmed at the sight of the camaraderie developing among the passengers. "Thank you, Ryan. It's heartening to see such enthusiasm. Together, we can create a platform for everyone's voices." With plans starting to take shape, Evelyn's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on her own journey and the struggles she had faced. She had spent so long carving out her place in a world that often dismissed her. But now, surrounded by a community eager to uplift one another, she felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. As they continued discussing ideas for the event, Evelyn found herself stepping back for a moment, allowing the energy of the group to wash over her. She watched as connections were forged, as people shared their aspirations and dreams, each story adding another layer to the tapestry of their community. Suddenly, a familiar figure approached from the edge of the platform. It was Thomas Green, the conductor, looking both curious and apprehensive. "I heard you all discussing a storytelling event," he said, his tone tentative. "I'd like to share my story as well." The group fell silent, their attention turning to Thomas, who had been a quiet observer up until this moment. "I've seen the impact of the railway on our towns, the way it brings people together," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "But I've also witnessed the struggles of those who work behind the scenes, who often go unnoticed. I think it's time we shine a light on their stories too." Evelyn felt a swell of gratitude for Thomas's honesty. "Absolutely, Thomas. Your perspective is invaluable. This event will only be stronger with your voice added to the mix." The enthusiasm in the air swelled as more passengers began to express their interest in sharing their own stories. From the retired teachers to the young artists, Each person had a narrative that was uniquely their own, yet intricately connected to the fabric of the community. As they formulated plans for the storytelling event, Evelyn felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. This was what she had longed for, to see people come together, to witness the power of shared experiences, and to create a legacy that transcended individual stories. Amidst the buzz of conversation, a sudden silence fell as Evelyn looked around at the faces gathered before her. "Remember," she began, her voice steady and clear, "each of our stories has the power to inspire change. By sharing our experiences, we honor not only ourselves but those who came before us and those who will follow." As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over the platform, the group stood united, a mosaic of voices ready to embark on a journey of discovery and connection. The railway had always been a symbol of resilience and community, but now it would serve as the foundation for a new legacy, one built on empathy, understanding, and the power of storytelling. With renewed purpose, Evelyn Carter felt a spark of hope ignite within her. She was no longer just a passenger on this journey, she was a beacon of inspiration, guiding others to embrace their own stories and the profound impact they could have on the world around them. As the first stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, the train station transformed into a canvas of dreams, waiting to be painted with the vibrant colors of their shared narratives. And with each passing moment, the seeds of connection and understanding began to blossom, promising a future rich with possibility. The day of the storytelling event dawned bright and clear, the sun casting a warm glow over the small town as the platform bustled with activity. Excitement buzzed in the air, palpable and electric, as the community prepared to come together to share their stories. Banners were hung, chairs were arranged, and a sense of camaraderie enveloped the space. Evelyn Carter stood at the edge of the platform, watching as familiar faces began to gather. Her heart swelled with anticipation, each moment steeped in the promise of connection and understanding. She had spent the morning reflecting on the power of stories, how they had the ability to bridge gaps and heal wounds. Today, she would witness that magic unfold. Laura Thompson arrived, her child happily perched on her hip. "Evelyn, look at all the people coming," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I can't believe how many have chosen to share their stories. It's incredible." Evelyn smiled, the warmth of Laura's excitement infectious. "Yes, it truly is. This is what community looks like, a tapestry of experiences woven together." As the sun climbed higher, more people poured onto the platform, each carrying their own unique narrative. Among them was Daniel Hughes, who had taken it upon himself to help organize the event. He approached Evelyn with a clipboard in hand, his expression a mix of excitement and nervousness. "We have a great lineup for today," he said, glancing around at the gathering crowd. "People are eager to share. I think this is going to be something special." Evelyn nodded, her heart racing at the thought. "Let's make sure everyone knows they have a voice here," she replied. "No matter how big or small their story may seem, it holds value." As the crowd swelled, Ryan Mitchell joined them, a new sense of purpose radiating from him. "I've put together a few guidelines for the storytelling sessions," he said, passing out sheets of paper. "I think it's important we create a safe space for everyone to share." Evelyn glanced at the guidelines, impressed by Ryan's thoughtfulness. "This is excellent, Ryan. Establishing a supportive environment is essential. It'll encourage others to speak openly." The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and anticipation. As the event commenced, the townspeople began to gather in front of a makeshift stage, the sunlight casting a golden hue over the platform. Evelyn took a moment to appreciate the sight, the vibrant faces, the shared excitement, and the palpable sense of community. Thomas Green stepped forward, taking on the role of MC for the day. With a warm smile, he welcomed everyone, his voice steady and reassuring. "Thank you all for coming to our storytelling event. Today is about celebrating our diverse experiences and understanding the common threads that bind us together." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of enthusiasm washing over them. Evelyn felt her heart race as the first speaker stepped up to the microphone, a retired teacher named Mrs. Peterson, known for her kindness and wisdom. As she began to share her story, a hush fell over the crowd. Mrs. Peterson spoke of her decades in the classroom, the lives she had touched, and the lessons she had learned. "Education is about more than just books," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "It's about nurturing the hearts and minds of our children, helping them to find their place in the world." As she spoke, Evelyn felt tears prick at her eyes, moved by the depth of Mrs. Peterson's experiences. The crowd listened intently, captivated by her words, each person resonating with the themes of growth and connection. After Mrs. Peterson. More voices followed, an artist sharing the struggles of pursuing her passion. A father recounting his journey to provide for his family. And a young man reflecting on the challenges of finding his identity. Each story added another thread to the tapestry, weaving a complex narrative of resilience, hope, and shared humanity. Evelyn felt a swell of pride as she listened to her community open up, vulnerability filling the space where silence once resided. With every shared story, the invisible barriers that had separated them began to dissolve, replaced by empathy and understanding. Finally, it was Evelyn's turn to speak. As she approached the microphone, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was her moment to share not just her story, but to honor all the stories that had led to this gathering. She took a deep breath, scanning the faces in the crowd, each one a reminder of the connections that had been forged through their shared experiences. "Thank you all for being here today," Evelyn began, her voice steady. "I've spent my life working on the railway. But what I've truly learned is that life itself is a journey that teaches us the value of connection." She spoke of her early days, the challenges she faced, and the triumphs that shaped her. "I realized that every story matters," she continued. "Every struggle, every success, adds to the collective narrative of our community. We must celebrate not only our victories but also the challenges that have brought us together." As she shared her experiences, the crowd hung on her every word, the energy palpable. Evelyn's passion ignited a fire within them, a reminder that they were not alone in their journeys. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause, a wave of appreciation washing over her. Evelyn stepped back from the microphone, her heart soaring with the knowledge that she had contributed to something greater, a celebration of resilience, unity, and shared humanity. As the day progressed, more stories were shared, laughter and tears intermingling as the sun began to set. Evelyn felt a sense of belonging wash over her, knowing that they were all part of something beautiful. The event had transformed into more than just storytelling, it had become a testament to the power of connection and the strength found in shared experiences. As the final speaker concluded, Thomas returned to the stage, his face beaming with pride. "Today has been a remarkable reminder of the strength of our community," he announced. "Let's continue to share our stories, to uplift one another, and to remember that together, we can achieve so much more." Evelyn stood at the edge of the crowd, feeling the warmth of their shared experiences enveloping her like a blanket. In that moment, she knew that their collective legacy was just beginning, and together, they would continue to weave a narrative rich with resilience and hope, forever changing the course of their community. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a brilliant array of oranges and purples across the sky, the storytelling event began to wind down. The crowd slowly dispersed, their faces still illuminated with the joy of shared connections and powerful narratives. Evelyn Carter stood at the edge of the platform, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment wash over her. Today had been more than she could have ever imagined. As the last few attendees exchanged hugs and promises to meet again, Laura approached Evelyn, her expression a blend of gratitude and excitement. "Evelyn, I can't believe how incredible today was. You brought so many people together," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. Evelyn smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. "We did this together, Laura." Each story shared was a reminder of the strength we possess as a community. "It's just the beginning." Laura nodded, her eyes glistening with inspiration. "I want to help organize more events like this. We could do workshops, art shows, anything to keep this momentum going." "Absolutely," Evelyn replied. "There are so many stories yet to be told. Let's keep the dialogue open and create spaces where everyone feels safe to share." Meanwhile, Daniel and Ryan were busy gathering feedback from the attendees. The enthusiasm was contagious, each person expressing their desire for more opportunities to connect and share their experiences. "This was just the first step," Daniel said, his voice filled with determination. "Imagine what we could do if we made this a regular event." Evelyn's heart raced at the thought. The possibilities were endless. "We could invite local artists, musicians, and speakers. Let's showcase the talents in our community and highlight the narratives that need to be heard," she suggested, her mind whirling with ideas. As they spoke, Thomas Green approached them, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Evelyn," he began, his voice steady, "what you've done today is remarkable. I think we can take this even further. Perhaps we could partner with local schools and community centers to spread the word and encourage more participation." Evelyn's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "That's a fantastic idea, Thomas. Involving younger generations will not only empower them but also enrich our community's narrative." As the group continued to brainstorm, The station grew quieter. The laughter and chatter of the day slowly fading into the distance. Evelyn felt a pang of nostalgia, recalling the initial moments of uncertainty that had led to this vibrant gathering. She had always believed in the power of storytelling, but witnessing the impact firsthand had left her breathless. Just as they were wrapping up, a familiar face emerged from the crowd. It was Sarah Lawson, her notebook in hand. "Evelyn, I'd love to write an article about today's event. I think it could inspire other communities to hold similar gatherings," she proposed. Her enthusiasm infectious. "That would be wonderful, Sarah," Evelyn replied, her heart swelling with pride. "The more we share our stories, the more we can inspire others to connect and uplift each other." As the night deepened, Evelyn took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. It was more than just the stories shared today, it was about the relationships forged and the understanding cultivated. The train, the very symbol of her legacy, had become a conduit for change, connecting people in ways she had only dreamed of. With newfound energy, Evelyn made her way back to the train station, where the last of the evening's attendees lingered. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice ringing clear. "Today marks a new chapter for our community. Let's carry this spirit forward, not just in storytelling but in every aspect of our lives. Together, we can build bridges, foster understanding, and create a legacy that honors every individual's journey." The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of appreciation washing over Evelyn as she stood before them, their shared stories glowing brightly in her heart. She felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that their collective narrative would continue to thrive and evolve. As the final train of the night pulled into the station, the lights of the locomotive cast a warm glow across the platform. The sound of the engine echoed like a heartbeat, a reminder of the journey that lay ahead. Evelyn watched as families gathered their belongings, a renewed sense of community enveloping them. "Evelyn," Daniel said, breaking her reverie, "I think this is just the beginning. We can turn this into something much larger, an initiative to celebrate diversity and shared experiences across the region." Evelyn nodded, a sense of excitement bubbling within her. "Yes, we can create a festival, workshops, perhaps even a community mural that tells our story visually." With plans taking shape, the passengers began to disperse, each carrying a piece of the day's magic with them. As Evelyn stood at the station, watching the last of the attendees walk away, she felt a profound sense of belonging. Tonight, she had not only shared her story but had also ignited a spark in others. The ripple effect of their stories would echo through the community, creating waves of understanding and connection that would resonate for years to come. As the stars twinkled overhead, Evelyn felt a surge of hope. The journey she had embarked upon had led her to this moment, a moment where she could finally see the fruits of her labor, where her past intertwined with the present to shape a brighter future. And as she took one last look at the train, a symbol of resilience and unity, she knew that the true journey was only just beginning.